I'm Jenny Sells. I'm a program manager in the Climate Program Office, and I also serve as the Federal Science Liaison for the Climate and Global Change Postdoctoral Fellowship Program. And in that role, I get to connect NOAA to the Climate and Global Change Postdoctoral Fellows and make sure that we're increasing the visibility of their research to NOAA, and we're also increasing the visibility of opportunities that they may have to interact with NOAA scientists. In addition to that role, I also work with UCAR CPAS, who administers the CNGC Fellow Program. And as that program progresses, because it's a 30-year-old plus program, we continue to make sure that the program's goals are aligned with NOAA's. As part of NOAA and UCAR CPAS's partnerships, we have the CNGC Fellowship, which I spoke about earlier. As part of that, we have the Summer Institute that UCAR CPAS organizes. And that brings all of the current fellows together, as well as program alumni and fellow advisors, or the host institutions of the fellows. And that gives the fellows incredible network opportunities that they can keep with them as they move forward in their careers. In addition to that, outside of the CNGC Fellowship, NOAA also works with UCAR CPAS to provide employment opportunities and connects scientists with NOAA organizations or NOAA offices. This year's theme is focusing on science for the public good and thinking about usable and actionable science. And that aligns with NOAA's mission, which is science, service, and stewardship. And I've been incredibly inspired by the leaders of tomorrow in climate science and talking about working with state regulators and bringing their research into developing air quality standards. Or in another example, a fellow talked about engaging land managers and working with them to understand how land practices are increasing or decreasing fire risk in certain areas. And so that's been really neat to see how these fellows are both doing kind of basic foundational research and then applying that research in really important, effective ways. The fellows also discussed barriers to working in that interdisciplinary space. And those institutional barriers in the government and academic sector are kind of really hard for early career scientists to go up against and a bit risky. And so it's really, I think, confirming for me to see that these young scientists are challenging the norm. And to me, that means they are, already leaders in their field. So I'm really excited to be here and looking forward to see what they do with the rest of their careers.
All right, I'm Gretchen Keppel-Alex. I'm an associate professor at the University of Michigan, and I was a NOAA Climate and Global Change postdoctoral fellow from 2011 to 2013. And I am thrilled to be back here as a co-lead for this summer's Summer Institute. This is a wonderful opportunity for the postdoctoral fellows to get to network, to get to meet senior scientists in the field, and to really form a community. Many of these postdocs are going to be the leaders in climate science over the next 10, 20, 30 years, and building bridges, learning about what is at the forefront of other disciplines within climate science is really important. As a more senior scientist here, I've loved to see what is of interest to the younger generation. What are the new problems that are coming to the forefront, and where is the field going? And I think all of us here have really benefited from hearing about the science that the postdoctoral fellows have been doing. We have also chosen a theme for thinking about actionable climate science for the greater good. And that stems from the fact that many of us are trained in a very disciplinary sense to work on complex, tricky, intricate aspects of the climate system using tools that are familiar to natural scientists. And yet many of us got into this field with an interest in helping society. We like physics or we like biology, but we hope that what we can do can have a broader societal impact. And so we had a series of discussions this week about how, as climate scientists, we could think about applying our research to improve human welfare? Are there ways that we can team up with stakeholders? Are there ways that we can better get the public to understand and take up climate change as a concern, in terms of public policy or politics? So, we don't have any right answers there, but it was an interesting set of discussions and a very interesting set of perspectives coming from the folks who are postdoctoral fellows sort of at the start of their independent careers, to those of us who are more mid-career, to those of us who are senior, in terms of the roles we see for climate scientists and the roles we see for institutions in providing usable climate information to the general public. So I don't know that we came away with any answers there either, but I think everyone had an opportunity to sort of do some soul searching and think about how to balance their love for natural science and climate science and basic research with a sense of responsibility to society in an era where we see that climate is changing rapidly and humans all over the world are seeing negative impacts from CO2 in the atmosphere and the warming that has created.
Hi, my name's Jane Baldwin. I'm an assistant professor of Earth System Science at the University of California, Irvine, and this week I was lucky enough to be a guest speaker in the NOAA Climate and Global Change Summer Institute. So I got to both speak to and learn from all of NOAA's great postdoctoral fellows. The topic this week was usable climate science. So we were thinking about how climate science can be applied for applications that improve human welfare for the most part in the relatively near term. We also spent some time talking about the perhaps one could say the costs and benefits of doing more applied versus more basic research. In my own research, I do a lot of work thinking about how we can bridge the gap between our projections of the hazard of climatic extreme events and their impacts. So I discussed two examples of work I've done in this area. One, thinking about how we can model the economic risks of tropical cyclones, particularly in the developing world where we have fewer data sets that accurately describe vulnerability and exposure of the people who live in those countries. And then I also described some work I had done thinking about challenges to being able to accurately project the health impacts of extreme heat, in particular ambiguity regarding whether humidity plays a critical role in those projections. So it was a really stimulating workshop. I got a lot of interesting feedback and hopefully stimulated some interesting discussion myself about the relative uncertainties from the hazard versus the vulnerability and the exposure when thinking about extreme events. So thanks.
Yeah, my name is Adam Sobel. I'm a professor at Columbia University. I am an alumni of this program, the NOAA UCAR Climate and Global Change postdoc program, and honored to be a co-lead with Gretchen this summer at the Institute. So this summer Institute for the postdoc program is a chance to bring the cohort together, because this is a program that traditionally turns out people who become the next generation leaders in climate science, and so it's really a benefit to the field and to the postdocs themselves to feel like they are a cohort and that they know who each other are and what each other are doing. It's a way of connecting across the different disciplines that the program supports and that the postdocs work in, a way of building a sort of intellectually coherent environment, cohort, and identifying what are areas of common interest, common questions, a way of people getting to know each other, possibly forming the foundations for future collaborations, and just defining the trajectory of the field and helping set the stage for the next cohort. Yeah, so every one of these summer colloquia has a theme, and we chose the theme of usable climate science. For me personally, this is a theme that I've been very consumed by the last few years. I had personally had co-organized a couple of workshops on this with a historian in the years previous. It seemed to be of great interest to Gretchen also. And what I think more importantly, both of us have had the feeling in our own institutions that it's of tremendous interest to the younger generation of scientists, meaning from postdocs down to graduate students, down to undergraduates. Almost the younger they are, the more they care about this question of how is our science being used, not just how are we understanding the climate better and the planet better, but how is that knowledge benefiting people, or does it have the potential to benefit people as the climate crisis proceeds. I think the way things have gone over the course of my career is that we all started out being concerned about this when I started, which was in the 90s, but it felt more hypothetical and far off in the future. And today it feels much less so. It feels much more immediate. And so that's caused many of us to think about how what we're doing matters or how it doesn't. And we also don't have a lot of spaces in our institutions and in our normal day-to-day practices, in our conferences, where we talk about this question of how is our work used or usable or how isn't it. So we wanted to make space for that. At the same time, we were very cognizant that what we didn't want to do was make anyone feel bad if they just do basic research and they don't want to do user-driven research. We didn't at all want to tell everyone that that's what they should do. Rather, our feeling is that that is by default what our institutions do. That's what we're all trained to do and what we all do if nothing else changes our mind about it. Rather, it's the use-inspired stuff, it's the usable science, the applied science, and the interdisciplinary science that sometimes struggles to find a foothold next to the traditional basic research. So we just wanted to give people a space to think about that, to think about how their work connects with the wider world or doesn't, and what are their motivations in doing this work, and is the work that they're doing connecting with the motivations in the way that they want it to, and to hear everybody else's views on that and have a productive and sometimes challenging conversation, which we certainly did, and I'm really happy how it went.